Hi, I'm AJ Condosta. I play drums for Guttermouth, Hit the Switch, Jugheads Revenge, and you're listening to National Drum League.
AJ, can you just take us from the beginning? How'd you get involved in drums and tell us about your love for music?
Well, I caught the bug pretty young, pretty early on. I mean, there was a lot of music in my house. The only musician in my family, but my parents listened to a lot of music, a lot of classic rock, a lot of pop stuff from the 60s, 70s. And I was born in 1980, so a lot of that stuff too. I come from the MTV generation, so I kind of grew up in front of MTV and just idolizing a lot of the bands and stuff that I saw on there. Guitar was actually my first instrument since my parents refused to buy me a drum set. So they bought me an acoustic guitar. So it all kind of started there with that. And I would just single note, try to figure out by ear how to play along with whatever I was watching that day, on MTV. And that kind of taught me. I learn drums now the same way. I've never taken lessons, or I don't read sheet music or spot read or anything like that. I just learned solely by ear. So, but yeah, old Led Zeppelin, Song Remains the Same, videos and stuff, and watching John Bonham. And then later, I was probably 6 or 7 years old, seeing like Welcome to the Jungle on MTV from Guns N' Roses, and just be like, damn, I want to do that. Like, I don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a fireman, a cop, anything. I want to do that for a living. And the bug has been in me ever since,
Yeah. So did you work on the drum hit, the snare hit like that?
Never. I'm not very good at flair. But
That was like Steven Adler's like main thing. He'd be
yeah, he was great at that, and keeping that left foot going too.
Yeah, that's right. That hi-hat just.
Yeah, one of the best in rock for sure.
But unfortunately, he did drugs, not like the rest of Guns N' Roses did. So he had to go.
Yeah, right. A little hypocrisy. I figured out the hypocrisy in rock and roll very early on too. But yeah, started with guitar, and so start a band or something, So I started my first band when I was probably 10 or 11, just so I could be around a drum set and learn how to play drums. So, we would take breaks at practice, and I would jump behind a kit and just start figuring it out,
Nice. Yeah. So where did you grow up at?
Kind of all over. My parents got divorced when I was pretty young, but I was born in Riverside and kind of moved all over different parts of Riverside. I then moved to like Yucaipa, California for a while, Gulf Shores, Alabama. I ended up graduating high school in Pensacola, Florida, and then back to Riverside. And I've kind of been here ever since, for a long time.
So AJ, you play with a ton of bands, dude. I mean, Voodoo Glow Skulls. I mean, you play with Guttermouth, dude, and then obviously Hit the Switch. Love that band, dude. I cannot wait to hear you guys' new stuff. I don't know when that album dropped.
Nothing. We dropped one in 2018 in September, so a little less than 2 years ago. That was like 9 years in the making almost. But it finally came out. And now we are reissuing it with a Canadian label and a European label and stuff, since we've been out of vinyl and stuff for probably almost a year. And Bird Attack Records kind of, I don't know if Garrett completely just folded or what, or if I know he had a kid and he focused a lot on family and everything. So I think he just kind of stepped back and from the label. So we're like, hey, well, our contract says that we retain all publishing and we own the rights to all our music. So, we're free to go elsewhere. And throughout this whole pandemic, I mean, a lot of smaller labels are kind of figured out a nice little niche, and they're re-releasing a lot of old records, on vinyl on their labels and stuff, which is really cool. They're kind of getting the rights and buying the licensing wherever need be. So like Jugheads Revenge, we're re-releasing a couple of the old albums through People of Punk Rock Records in Quebec, Canada. Hit the Switch is through the same thing. Hit the Switch is actually going to be re-releasing all three our old Nitro Records albums, as well as the latest album and stuff on there too. So Matt's, of course, writing new stuff right now. He's always kind of writing. because he knows that that process of elimination of ideas to actually be sculpted into songs that he's content and happy with takes a lot of time. You know, he cares a lot and he has a lot of passion for not only what he wants to say, but what he also wants to play.
Playing in so many bands, what does it take to go in there, obviously nail the audition, walk us through that process, and then also tell us what's been your success?
Really, really listen. This goes back to how I was saying how I kind of taught myself everything by ear. I was forced to go to church at a very young age and stuff, but when we lived in Gulf Shores, Alabama, that was the cool thing about it, is it was like Southern Baldwin County Baptist church. So they had a live band, and I would always watch the drummer and I'd be like, oh, that's what he's hitting. So that's the noise that the hi-hat makes, and that's the noise that the toms make, and this is a ride. So I knew just by seeing that, listening to music, and I knew what, the drummer was hitting. So basically, I don't read sheet music, and most of the bands that I audition for or whatever are punk bands. So they don't send me sheet music. You got to just listen. You got to listen to the songs. You got to break them down note for note and really pay attention to what's being played. So that's step one. And then step two is kind of feeling out and finding how married they are to the original recordings and the ideas, and finding my place and where I can add a little bit of myself, to those parts. A lot of times, some people just play it like the record, just play it like the record. But most of the time, especially the bands that I'm in now, they hired me for a reason. They like my style. They like the way I drum. They like my take on things. Mm-hmm. So they've given me freedom, like, obviously I'm not Neil Pearting it up all over punk songs and stuff where it doesn't need to be, but I've always been allowed that freedom to just kind of make things my own, make the songs my own, and kind of play what I would have played had I been the drummer that was in the room writing the songs or recording the parts, and it's worked out pretty well.
So do you think if you were in a band that was saying, hey, just play exactly what our last drummer played?
I've been in those bands, yeah.
Okay. And were you able to stay with them, or is it kind of like, hey, you know what, I'm good, I'm going to go somewhere else?
No, I was. Definitely. I mean, because it depends on the style. Never a punk band have I been in where they want me to strictly stick to that. But I spent a few years in like a major label type radio band and stuff, which I mentioned in some of these other questions that are coming up, I guess. But, and that was full on, like playing along to a metronome. We also had backing tracks. So I had a little mixer, with a DI and everything ran to where I had the metronome going into my headphones, and I had a backing tracks going out to front of house. And I had to play everything just like the record, and everything obviously had to be in perfect tempo live. So I've been in that situation too, and I respect the need for it as well. Sure. So as long as it's not just some egomaniac, which in that case it was. We can get into that more later. But, there's a reason for it in certain aspects and in certain situations. So obviously I respect that, and I'm able to adapt to that for sure. If it's written right, the first time, and it's like, wow, that's kind of what I would have played anyway. Mm-hmm. Or I actually enjoy playing something that I wouldn't have originally played. So yeah, but being a hired gun, quote unquote, or joining other bands that have been established, especially the bands that I'm in. Like, it seems 1988 was apparently a great year for punk bands. Voodoo Glow Skulls started in 1988. Guttermouth started in 1988. Jugheads Revenge started in 1988. So a lot of these bands kind of started back then. So they've been around, and their catalog has been around for 30 plus years, Yeah. So obviously you got to stay true to the feel of those songs and stuff. So just joining those kinds of bands, as far as advice for people that are looking to be kind of in that situation, just listen to the people that wrote the music and know your place within that. Don't come in there with an ego and well, this is me and take me or leave me. You either have all of me or none of me. your passion projects, you can take that stance, you know, if you're super passionate about that stuff. But when you're joining these established bands, especially bands that have had that kind of following for so long, you know your place and check your ego at the door and see, you know, dip your toe in the water, see what you can get away with here and there, you know, and if you get weird looks, then be like, no, all right, let's not do that again.
You get
you know?
to look back like, what was that, bro? You know, then you go, okay,
exactly.
on this part.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I've gotten that look. I've gotten that look. Like, hey, I tried. I threw it out there, you know.
Okay, just a little mental check mark. Okay, no on that, and no on that little additional fill. No.
Yeah, or that one looked like a maybe. I'll talk to him about it later. That one kind of looked like a maybe.
I'll ignore it and see if he looks back next time.
Yeah, it's hard to give a thumbs up when you're holding a guitar pick, so I'm just gonna assume that you liked it.
So when did you start with your like first serious band, and then walk us through to where you are today?
I guess my first real band was a band called Hamper, and I was, I think, 12 or 13 years old when I played my first real show. That I grew up, you know, fortunately around legendary like Southern California punk and metal venues like the Barn in Riverside and the Showcase Theater in Corona and even the old San Bernardino Arena. Copacetic Cafe in San Bernardino, a lot of these old venues. So I was a real young kid, but the guys in my band were all in high school and a couple of them even out of high school. And we formed good relationships with a lot of those club owners and those promoters back in the day. And I got to be a real young kid, you know, opening for a lot of my favorite bands at the time. Like we would open at the Showcase Theater in the Barn for like Strung Out and Ignite and the Vandals and Guttermouth and Voodoo Glow Skulls. And I've played and opened with a lot of the bands that I play with now. And I was just 12, 13-year-old little kid, you know, going crazy, playing guitar, jumping off the drum riser and jumping into the crowd. And we weren't very good, but we gave it our all every show. And I think we caught some people's attention and other bands mainly. And we're like, man, I like these kids, you know, these kids are crazy. Look at them. So they'd put us on shows, you know. So that was my first real band. And I wrote, you know, the majority of the songs, lyrics and everything, guitar, lyrics, all that stuff for that band. And I mentioned earlier that I moved to, you know, Gulf Shores, Alabama and stuff. I lived there when I was in like 5th grade, you know, and I was just getting into like being a musician and stuff. Moved back to California, start Hamper, all that good stuff, start playing shows, start a bunch of childhood dreams, you know, kind of coming through. And then my mom got another job transfer back out to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And so I had to leave all of that. So now at this point I was 15, I think. We'd already done a couple of little short tours, little like Arizona to New Mexico type runs. And real young, permission slip type stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But my mom has always felt bad about that, even to this day, that she made me, I had no choice but to move back to Alabama. But, you know, perseverance. I started a band as soon as I got out there. We lived in Gulf Shores, which is a beach city in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a little island kind of. And I would roam the beach and find anybody wearing a punk shirt or anybody that looked like a musician. And that was, you know, and I formed a band, you know, within 2-3 months of moving out there. It was middle of summer, so everybody was hanging out. And I started a band called Welfare, and it was like a melodic kind of hardcore band. Okay. And I kept in touch with a lot of the guys from like Good Riddance and Fury 66 and stuff like that. And we were like pen pals. And a band from Fearless Records called Blunt was actually from Pensacola, Florida. And Pensacola, Florida, if you lived in Gulf Shores, that's where you went for shows. There was venues like Sluggos and the Night Owl and stuff like that. And that's where all these punk bands would come through when they go on tour. So I kept in touch with those guys, and I would, you know, link up my new band. Gulf Coast Hardcore is what we were called. Yeah, nice. GCHG, Welfare. But we would, through that, you know, and through relationships that I built as a little kid, playing shows out here, we were able to link up with some of those bands and stuff whenever they would come through town. And so at that point, I'm 15, 16, 17 years old and everything. So, and then things went south with a girl, small town, not going to stick around. I moved back to California and instantly started a band, tried to find a band, and the whole Guitar Center, little pull tab drummer looking for, a band or whatever, and calling numbers. And I ended up joining a couple of brothers that had moved out from England. I think they were from Bristol, and they moved out to Redlands, California, of all places.
Okay. Yeah.
And we started a band called Anemic, and that was more kind of like Deftones, because this was 1999 at that point. So it was like kind of Snapcase beats like Deftones type with a little punk mixed in.
Around the Furs out, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, this is it.
Yeah, exactly. And you ask in a later question, some of my epic fails, and that was one of them. That was my first time recording in an actual studio on the drums and playing along to a metronome.
Okay.
And we spent all this money on a nice studio in LA, pro setting and everything, and I was just so green. Like, I was changing my heads. I picked up heads on the way to the recording session. So it's like, oh yeah, let's just waste 2 hours changing your heads.
Yeah.
I'm like 17, 18 years old.
Like $85 an hour or something like that.
Yeah, go right ahead. And then I had like the foam spray glued on the inside of my head for muffling. I had to do all that. It was just so, and then he put on a metronome, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I got nothing done. I wasted an entire day of money at a professional studio and got nothing done. And we went, and stayed at a hotel that night. We had a conversation, and we just went back to Riverside. And I was basically mutually fired and quit the band pretty much the next day. Okay. That band kind of went on to they moved back to England and got signed to like a pretty decent label out there, and actually ended up becoming, a semi-big band in the UK and in Europe and stuff, and toured out there with like The Used and Story of the Year and bands like that. And I was always glad that they did well, but that always just left, like a personal bruise on my ego, where it's like, all right, man, you talk all this game and you say that this is what you want to do with your life and you've always known it. Well, get your shit together. And so I locked myself in a room. This was before iPods. And so I had a Discman, and I bought the most noise canceling headphones I could find at the time that didn't cost an arm and a leg.
Just phone.
Yeah. And I just started playing along to albums that were recorded to a metronome, just to really hone in on my internal meter and get my timing right, because I thought I was good back then. I could do all these flashy fills and quads and all this stuff, but my timing was horrible. So yeah, I didn't play in a band for a couple years, which was the longest stint I'd gone on without playing either guitar or drums in a band since I was 12 years old. And at this point, I'm like 19, 20. And then I joined a band called All She Wrote. Same thing, Guitar Center tabs and stuff. And it was like a male-female singer guitar player duo that played almost like Foo Fighters meets Chili Peppers, because we had some funk in there with a little Mars Volta feel, but like kind of progressive-y type stuff with the female singer. And I spent about 5 years in that band, just really learning a lot about recording. We recorded 2 albums, about writing, about actual songwriting and structure, and just really learned a lot and cut my teeth a lot in that band. And that's where I kind of went on some of my first like real tours, was with that band and stuff as well. And that's how I really, I guess, kind of came into my own as an actual drummer for an actual band, not just a guitar player playing drums,
Kind of like your college.
Yeah, absolutely. School of Hard Knocks, that old cliche. That's definitely what it was.
When did you decide to make the full transition? Is that obviously had part to do with it.
To drums?
Yeah.
I figured out kind of then, because throughout my time in All She Wrote, that was probably like 2000 to like 2006, about 6 years. I got hit up a lot by other bands needing a drummer. And that's kind of when I figured out, like, no offense, guitar players, but you're a dime a dozen. There's a lot of guitar players out there. people that need drummers. So I just figured, all right, I better just focus on this and keep getting better at my craft and get better at drums, because it's gonna go a lot further for me. So I just kind of figured it out then that a lot more people need drummers, than they do guitar players or anything. So
Absolutely.
and I always wanted to play drums. Again, like I said, I wanted a drum set when I was 6 years old, but my parents said no friggin' way, and they got me a guitar instead. Like, let's see how he does with this. And so I always wanted to play drums. And like I was telling him earlier, every band I played guitar for, even as a kid, that was the whole reason I started a band, was so I could be around a drum set and teach myself how to play. I started playing drums on couch cushions and pillows. And my grandfather worked for, he was a mailman, so he worked for the Postal Service. And back in the 80s, they used to have these white, plastic tubs that were like real, they had this like snare. It sounded, I wish I could have it and record with it now. It was one of the best sounding snares I think I've ever played. But and I had those, and that was my bedroom drum set, And so just listening, and I knew what they were hitting. I knew what the notes were. So figuring things out on there. So when I started a band when I was real young, I would jump back there and now try to transform that to an actual kit. So I would play along to like White Trash, Two Heaves and a Bean, every note on couch and tubs and cushions. And then I'd sit down by a kit and be like, all right, I thought I could play it, but I can't really play it. It's a different animal. But that's where it started, just implementing that muscle memory. So I always wanted to play drums. So making that full transition when I actually, in the middle of All She Wrote, where I considered myself an actual drummer for an actual band, it was easier to make that transition and to put myself out there with confidence, saying, okay, I've already been through the ringer with the metronome and with my timing. I got that in check. I've gotten some stage experience now for the last 6 years, some tour experience. I'm comfortable there. Now I feel like I can walk the walk, as they say, So I felt more comfortable putting myself out there in order to be available to make that transition.
So did you have an official time when you decided, hey, I'm going to just do this full time?
That was always the goal. Like I said, I knew at a very early age that this is what I wanted to do. And I think I call it the uncontrollable passion. That's what I've named it, with, at least for me. I got that uncontrollable passion when I was real young, especially in Hamper, when we started to play real shows, at real venues, and there's 400 people at Showcase Theater, and you're opening up for Strung Out or for Guttermouth or something. It's just like, all right, I can do this, I can actually do this. And so it was instilled in me kind of then. So that was always the goal, but obviously it's never a given that you're going to make any money doing this. It still isn't, And
Sure.
we all have, even now, I'm very fortunate to be able to make at least half of my living playing drums, but I'm also fortunate to have a job that lets me come and go as I please, I bartend at a brewery a few days, 3-4 days a week when I'm not on tour and stuff. And I've worked there for years, and they've always known that, okay, him bands drumming, that's not some hobby, that's his actual job.
Right.
He makes more doing that than he does when he's even working here. So I just kick ass while I am there and remind them why they let me come and go, because I'm a good employee. And so I'm
Right.
fortunate to have that. Obviously, the goal still is to not need that, and to be able to make enough on tour to where if I'm home for a month or two, I don't have to work, or, there's maybe I have a recording session project or something as well. But when it first hit me that I was actually able to do it was when I joined I Hate Kate, a band called I Hate Kate. There was a band called Zebrahead from Orange. Yeah, they were from Orange County and stuff, and got signed to Columbia Records and all that stuff pretty early on, and had some hits and some success. Well, Justin left Zebrahead and started a band called I Hate Kate. So I was the drummer for that band for a few years, and that's where I learned a lot about the business side.
Mm-hmm.
When I was saying that radio major label type band, that was the band I was talking about. Like, I was a whole new animal, playing to a metronome every night, backing tracks, all that stuff, but also the politics of that scene. I learned a lot about that, what to do, what not to do, but I made decent money, and I would we'd go on a 2-month tour, and then I'd be off for a few months. And I made little business cards and started giving drum lessons at, obviously not reading sheet music or anything like that. And it even said so on my business card that, like, I'm not going to teach you rudiments. I'm not going to teach you how to read sheet music. I'm going to teach you how to play your favorite songs. You know, I'm going to teach you how I learned by ear. And I probably did that for almost a year, where I had about 5 students every week. And so I would make an extra few $100 a week, you know, and that would be enough to sustain the savings of what I made on tour and everything.
Sure.
Until we went back out on the road again and stuff. And that's when I guess kind of learned that, like, oh, all right, well, it's not that far-fetched to be able to do this for a living. You just have to be realistic with your expectations, you know. You got to know that big royalty check, especially these days, is not coming. You gotta work, and you gotta hustle. And that's kind of where I got into drumming for multiple bands. That was the first time I'd been a drummer for more than one band at a time, which presented a whole new animal as far as scheduling and availability and everything, and learning how to juggle, you know, family life and home life, and, you know, not getting spread too thin. And it's still a fine line. I mean, I have 2 ex-wives for a reason, and that's that uncontrollable passion. It's always come first. So I think once I saw that, yeah, it's hard to get rich and be a rock star, but that's fine. I've never wanted to be a rock star. I've never cared about being rich and famous. I've always just wanted to make a living touring the world and doing what I love, which is playing music and touching people's lives, you know, and giving them an escape from their problems, even if it's only for a night. And in that band, I learned, like, oh, this is possible. So that definitely put that uncontrollable passion first, to where it's like, all right, I'm going to do everything I can to just keep hustling. And my first wife I was with for almost a decade, and I turned down so many opportunities in my 20s, so many bands that had hit me up that ended up doing something, and I wasn't a part of it. And for her, you know, and I was ready to give up on music and all that stuff altogether. And then things happened, and that marriage went south. And right after is when I joined I Hate Kate. And a month after that, I went on a 3-month national tour full of theaters and huge clubs and stuff like that. And hearing songs on the radio and TV shows and stuff like that, and doing live recordings and everything on morning shows and everything, and really hit me like, okay, this uncontrollable passion is for a reason, and this is possible. And I've always been realistic since then, like, oh, okay, well, half the guys in these bands are just hired guns. When this tour is over, they're going to go out with this band now and just kind of stay on the road. So it's kind of where it all really started. I'm very fortunate to my wife now, is also from the industry. I met her on a Canadian tour with Voodoo Glow Skulls, and she's from Montreal, and she worked for the record label that brought us out there for that leg of the tour, and she was one of our tour managers for the whole tour. So we formed a friendship and everything there, and I'm very fortunate, and I think that's kind of, I'm not saying for everybody, but I think that's kind of what you need, is somebody who at least understands what we go through on tour, you know, because my previous ex-wives and girlfriends and all that stuff probably thought, oh, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, he's probably out on tour right now just getting hammered and, you know, flirting with chicks and doing drugs and blah, blah, blah. And they don't know that it's mostly me hiding in a green room fighting social anxiety until it's time to play. And then I'm loading up my drums and getting in a van and driving to the next city, you know. So being with somebody that's not only done that herself, she tour managed bands and stuff for years as well. So somebody that gets it and that empathizes with what I'm actually going through. So with that phone call at the end of the night, there's not this resentment on the other line. You're like, oh yeah, what'd you do tonight? How's the show? Oh, great. You know, it's somebody like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? You guys getting along? You know, how are you holding up? You know, and that's important. I would have never got married again if I didn't find that.
So do you have a specific pre-show routine?
I'm not classically trained, so I suck at rudiments and stuff. I know quite a few of them accidentally, apparently. I didn't really know they were rudiments until someone was like, oh, show me that little like triplet or flam thing that you were doing. It's like, oh, that's what it is. But mostly I just kind of stretch throughout the entire day. And then, you know, when it's about an hour before we play and my dinner is settled, I'll probably crack open like one beer, because I can't play worth a damn when I'm drunk. I just turn into rubber. Do some yoga stretches as well that help. with a little breathing, just to kind of calm the adrenaline and calm the anxiety a little bit. So a lot of good wrist stretches and everything like that. And then I'll pick up I carry a pair of sticks that are like 3 sizes bigger than what I actually play. And I'll just start burning my arms, just getting that flare going, getting that fire in the forearms and stuff, and just keep stretching it out. Put the sticks down and stretch it out. And I'll do that for, about an hour up until we play. Just kind of walking around and talking to people, getting myself hyped up, getting in a good mood, forcing myself to be social so that I can go out and be seen and heard, I guess.
Very similar. I warm up with marching sticks. I warm up with the sticks that I marched with in high school. But when you get it, it's the same thing like swinging a baseball bat with a donut on it. You're swinging a heavier bat, so when you swing that bat, it's a little lighter,
Yep. Yeah,
And,
your speed's better, your accuracy's better.
Yeah, absolutely. My rule of thumb is an hour. I will not eat anything an hour and a half before I play.
Mine's like 2 hours is the cutoff for me.
Hour and a half window, I can't do it.
Yeah, my cutoff's like at least 2 hours for me.
Yeah, and it's like I've made that mistake one too many times. It's like, shit, I haven't eaten all day. I'm real hungry. It's about 45 minutes before the set, and I crush like the most delicious burrito. And all of a sudden, like 3 songs in, I'm like, that was the worst idea I could have had right now.
Yeah,
like absolutely terrible decision.
Man, to be completely honest,
I've been there plenty of times.
you guys sound so professional, dude. Like, seriously, when I get somewhere, because I get social anxiety too, and even though you might not think so, I just start drinking right away. And like, I'm 6 years deep before the set starts. And I'm like, I don't warm up at all. I just get
I've seen you in action, Mike. I know.
I struggle through the first song, like, oh, you start keep that notes, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, damn, man. I should have warmed up. Second song starts, you're like, no,
I can't
right,
even move my
here
arm.
we go.
Normally when I'd get home from a tour, my drums would stay in their cases, for a month or however long it was until it was time for the next tour, because most of the bands that I play in never rehearsed except for Voodoo occasionally. But I knew that I was on tour when things started getting shut down, and actually last 2 shows of our tour got canceled. So we came home, and I made it about a week. And I was just like, just now that I know that I don't have a tour coming up and I don't know what's going to happen, I had to set my drums up and start playing, or else I would have gotten depressed. I would have gone nuts, and I probably would have gotten fat. But challenging myself, like I started with playing songs that I've known how to play for years from, bands that I've been in or whatever. And then it just quickly started turning into like, well, I want to learn how to play this Propaganda song, because George's one of the best drummers in punk rock. And I've never been able to figure out a Propaganda song, or, something from Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. And I'd never played an Iron Maiden song before. And I did a video for Master of Puppets, like all the way through. And I just started challenging myself to songs that were way outside of my comfort zone and learning how to play them note for note, not just cheating them, again, like a cover band, but playing them note for note. And it's not only do I get to stay creative throughout, it keeps me on my chops, and it's actually giving me more chops. It's making me a lot better drummer, figuring out how to play other dudes' stuff and, bands I will probably never be in, but I want to figure out some of my favorite songs from some of my favorite drummers. And I've gotten a lot of props from some of my favorite drummers on my videos, just like, yeah, man, you killed it. That's awesome. Hell yeah.
That's rad. And honestly, I think the good things that came out of all this mess is how we're able to, musicians are able to put their music out there, and they're focusing on that more. And now we're finding out, like, wow, I can track a drum part and email it to my friend that lives across the world and have him track, bass, guitar, vocals, just all over the place. And people are doing that more and making these online videos, which are so fun to watch because you get more insight. You get to see kind of like more of the person you're in. You know what I mean? Like, it's so awesome.
Totally. Like, you get to learn a new skill. Like, I've never been like technologically sound, I've never been good with computers or anything like that. And I just started messing with iMovie for these drum videos. And it kind of started with like, I don't know, about 3 years ago, Tom Petta from Bigwig and I were going back and forth for almost a couple years, where he'd be like, dude, I want you to come and play these shows with us. We need a drummer. And so I started learning Bigwig songs, and he lives in Tennessee, so we're like on opposite ends of the country. And so it's not like we could get in a room and audition or jam. So I had to film myself playing these songs on my phone and send them to him. And I was like, dude, I have no idea how to show you what I'm playing. He's like, I know the drum parts. I know the songs. Like, you just say the song at the beginning of the video, and I would just send him a video of me playing the drums with no background music. And he would just have to be like, oh yeah, he played that right. And so when I started these drum videos, I took some of those old videos that I sent him, and then I dragged the song, the actual song out of iTunes, and dumped it into iMovie and just started syncing it up. And it's like, oh, hey, let me try to get good at this now. So I learned a new skill. You know, I get to fuck around and learn how to EQ and edit in iMovie and stuff, which I never thought I'd be able to do. And then I get to play songs that I never thought I'd be able to play, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Silver lining.
Logic and learning how to record and program drums. I've always kind of know how to do it. But Murderland, one of my other bands, is writing a bunch of demos right now. And the guitar players keep sending me these songs, and they just put, you know, the most basic beats underneath it just so they can record the song to it. And I'm like, I'll fix this, and I'll take it and I'll put it in Logic, and I'll program the parts that I hear that I would play. And it's been a lot of fun, and writing a lot of like metal songs. So I'm writing these parts that I'm like, I think I can play that. I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to work at it. But they're very ambitious, is what I should say. The parts are, but it's fun. It's just, we've got to take advantage of this extra time that we have and do anything and everything to stay on top of what it is that we're doing and what we love and
to build on it, you know?
Yeah, I myself am learning iMovie and editing videos and doing multiple camera angle things and stuff like that. And it's just really cool. Like, I'm the same as you. I never thought I would ever know how to do these things. And like the technology we have available now, it's just becomes so much easier than it ever really was.
Yeah. Yep.
It is pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
So who talk endorsements? Who are you with? Who do you?
As far as sticks, London Drumstick Company, out of England. This guy Will, he started a company. They've got some great drummers with them and stuff now as well.
They're killing it.
Yeah, they are killing it, and I love them, man. Nice custom sticks and stuff from those guys. Heads, Aquarian drum heads, which is crazy. I've loved Aquarian, like ever since I started playing drums for actual bands and started to have to like change my heads regularly and stuff. I went through all the trials. I started with Remo, of course, but then they got a little too expensive for the unpaid musician. And so I went to Evans, and then I started using Aquarian, and I've used them ever since. That Super Kick 2 and everything is amazing. And then the technology that they've added to even some of their coated and clear heads with the power dot and all that now, like they make a head for any tone that I'm going for, or any band that I'm playing in. Certain bands will require coated heads. Some will require a little more resonance, so a clear head. So super stoked to be with Aquarian. That's a huge bucket list. And the way it happened too just goes back to, showing up and doing your job. I was playing at the Doll Hut with Guttermouth.
Nice.
Doll Hut, shithole. And the type of people that go to the Doll Hut most of the time. But there was a guy there that owns a merch company in Orange County, and his family works for Zildjian and works for Aquarian and stuff. And he saw me. Guttermouth is one of his favorite bands. He doesn't go to shows anymore unless it's Guttermouth, pretty much. So every time Guttermouth would play Orange County, he'd come out. And he saw me playing outside on a friggin' makeshift stage with hardly a PA. And he was just like, dude, that's the best drummer I've ever seen playing Guttermouth. And he found me on Instagram, and he sent me a message, and he was just like, dude, are you endorsed? Like, do you have a head endorsement or symbols or anything like that? Like, I can hook you up with the people like at Aquarian and at Zildjian and everything. So he's the one that hooked me up with them, man. And he vouched for me. And then Chris Brady got back to me, and then Kirsten got back to me and all that, and then it just happened through playing the doll hut, you know?
Yeah, you never know.
Never
You
know.
never know.
So you show up sober, do your job. I have a phrase, I earn the party. You know, I'm there to do a job. There's people on stage and in the crowd that are relying on me to do that job. So I'll party later. If I do that job well, I earn the party. I'll party later. Sleeve washers from Hendrix drums.
Oh yeah. Josh,
They're these badass little clear, different colored washers if you want. Go in between your tension rods for all your drums, and they keep them from loosening up. They keep it from rusting. They're super awesome, man. That's shout out to them. Hendrix drums, sleeve washers. Those are awesome.
So what was it like talking to Kirsten over at Zildjian and getting that hookup?
That was honestly not even a legit signed endorsement or anything. I just kind of got almost like a one-time trial deal type thing with some A customs. And I don't even know if it was her that responded, honestly. I think it was because she kind of stepped back from that stuff. Mm-hmm. From like our A&R type stuff.
From the day-to-day stuff, yeah.
Was Sarah. I think it was actually Sarah that got back to me and everything. So I endorse them even though they don't endorse me type of thing because I love A customs.
I played Zildjian from day one. I've never had any kind of even close to endorsement, and I will endorse the fuck out of those cymbals.
A custom.
Yeah, man. They're the best.
Unquestionable.
Yeah. So I hope to expand on that relationship in the future somehow instead of having to shop eBay and Musician's Friend and find a used 20-inch Zildjian A custom crash or whatever for less than $200.
Play the Guitar Center racket right, you will never have to buy a new cymbal ever again. I have purchased. You buy.
Are you sure you want to let this out? Are you sure you want to let
You buy the cymbals brand new. Guitar Center knows about it. I talked to every single employee that works there, and they're well aware. But you pay the price for the brand new cymbal, $300 for a 20-inch crash cymbal. You pay $60 for the additional 3-year warranty through Guitar Center because Zildjian now covers it for the life of 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'll break it 4 times in 2 years. I'll replace it, and the next time it breaks, I go through the Guitar Center warranty, and they send me a gift card for the cost of the cymbal minus the warranty, and you pay another $50 or whatever it is for the 3-year warranty. I think it's like $60 or $70 now. And every 3 years, you only pay $60 no matter how many times you have to replace that cymbal. And it's worked really, really well for me for about a little over a decade now.
I used to get the performance guaranteed things too, and 2-year deals and all that stuff.
I started getting them absolutely because how often I was breaking cymbals, and I saved a disgusting amount of money on brass.
It's called dynamics, Josh.
No, it's not. I hit hard. I don't do shit. I don't play a pop band or a country band. I play punk rock. It's really loud.
Smash.
Your drums don't sound unless you hit them. They're meant to be hit, right?
Yeah. And I'm 5'6" on a good day. I weigh 145 pounds. I got a lot to prove up there. I hit as hard as I can sometimes with finesse and technique, so I don't blow myself out. But I make it a point to be loud, man. Smash.
They're meant to be hit, man. They're meant to be hit. I've had sound guys. Oh yeah, so we have 110 decibel limit tonight, and I'm like, that sucks.
I don't even know what that is. Sorry, bud.
My snare shit on that.
I can't turn this down, brother. There's no volume knob on this.
Oh, it's absolutely true. Oh, that is the best thing about acoustic drums, though, dude. When I was with the Beans, we were in France on a boat, and the last song we were doing oh shit, regardless, whatever. We were doing the last song of the fucking show, right? And the fucking power went out on the entire boat, dude. And I was just like, can't turn me off. I'm acoustic drum, because they told us, they're like, we got 2 more acts, you're done. And
Power, you can't stop
I
me.
thought they were cutting us off. I was like,
Turn all the
acoustic.
microphones off. Does it
Acoustic.
really
I ain't
matter?
stopping. I ain't
No.
done. And the whole
Yeah.
boat started jumping around, dude, singing the song. It was so rad. It was no time, dude. It was no time. And yeah, that was like one of those epic moments where like you were saying, hey, I can't turn this down. Guess what? You might be able to cut off our guitars and our mics.
Yeah,
but
shut
you
me
can't
up.
turn me off. You can
Hold on one sec.
Oh, we ended up finding out that the power was lost. Working intentionally, you know, I was sleep deprived. And,
Here we go. A little more light. It's getting dark.
there we go.
Yeah.
It's so awesome though. Like,
All right.
it's so awesome though to hear your story, like where you started, where you came from, like and the fact that you literally started playing to a metronome or to you bands that you knew were recording to a metronome, because that is literally stage 1. I mean, it is the first thing drummers should ever learn is rhythm. And I don't care if you're sitting there playing to a metronome that's clicking quarter notes for you, going 1, 2, 3, 4.
Time is our job. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, without time,
Yeah,
you're nothing.
you got to hone
You know what
that
I mean?
like, internal meter real early, and it'll help you make those adjustments later on in your career. You know, it's very important. I didn't know how important it was until, you know, it was almost too late. I screwed up an entire recording session and got absolutely nothing done, and I cost a band money. Well, the engineer got paid either way, I guess. So, whatever. But I cost, you know, my pride for sure. And yeah, man, if I would have, that's what I'll tell kids too. Don't be afraid of being the band geek, man. Don't be afraid to be in marching band when you're in school. I wish I would have been, you know, I wish I would have had that real rudimentary training and stuff, which would help me a lot more now, you know, but I didn't. And yeah,
I mean,
I envy the ones who did.
yeah, I joined a few projects where they were in the studio recording and they kicked their drummer out because he couldn't record to a click. And I'm just like, oh, how many songs do you need to be recorded? 5? All right, cool. Give me 1 8-hour session and you'll have the tracks that you need.
Yeah.
Super easy.
Yep.
And it's just so absolutely necessary to play with a click, to practice to a click. Like Mike was saying, he and I marched in high school, and we had a metronome literally drilled into our skulls every single day. And it absolutely helped me be a better drummer in the long run because of it. Because going to those sessions, they're like, "Oh, do you want to record with a click?" I'm like, "Is that even a question?"
It makes everybody else's job easier after you know?
Absolutely, especially nowadays with editing. Else, like I cannot imagine how it must have been editing reel to reel without some kind of grid.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys click back in the day, and it's just like that had to be an absolute editing nightmare. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, once you have that metronome drilled into your psyche too, you can hear old records that weren't recorded to a click, and you can tell, you know. Yeah, and it made the being, like you mentioned, which is perfect, is just about being just a more efficient player. The second I Hate Kate record, we had the drum room for one day, one 16-hour session, and I had to record the entire album. You know, I think we did like 15 songs or something, and 12 of them made the record. And I had to do that, everything from setting up, getting tones, setting gates, all that stuff, to actual performance. And I had to do the entire record in one session. And it was much easier because we toured and played live to a click. So the metronome was not intimidating at all. And we made adjustments on the fly with the producer being in the room too. Like, hey, how about instead of this, the way we've been rehearsing it and doing pre-production, instead of that, let's do this, you know, and being able to make those adjustments on the fly and just being more efficient. It all starts with that internal meter and being able to follow a click and follow a metronome, you know.
Can you tell us about a perfect moment that you wish you could replay over and over again?
Like on stage, like live?
Stage or in studio or just something that was like, wow, that was amazing.
Shoot, man, it's hard to narrow it down because there's actually been so many. I'm real fortunate, but I'll tell you a couple. Mexico City, a festival that Voodoo Glow Skulls played a few years ago. It's probably the best show that I've ever played. I think it was like Viva la Ska Festival or something like that it was called.
Okay.
Or Nonstop Ska, I forget. But Mad Caddies like went on right before us, and it's in a big like airplane hangar that holds. Have you ever been to Coachella? You know those tents, like the Sahara tent that holds like 20,000 people. It was like that, and every packed to the gills, and every kid dancing and singing the horn lines louder than the PA, you know. And so when we just from first note, like we opened with, I think, Delinquent Song, and if you know that song, it starts with a horn line, just ba da 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 da, and right away, and I just got goosebumps right away when we started that set, and it did not stop the entire, I think, 50 minutes that we played. That's definitely one. Playing Amnesia Rock Fest in Montebello, Quebec, Canada. I think this was like the second time that I played that festival. I played it a year or two prior with Voodoo, and then I went with Jugheads a year after that with Jugheads Revenge. And Jugheads used to tour Canada relentlessly, like back in the 90s. And they would tour with The Offspring and, you know, with big bands and stuff out there. And they'd done arena tours out there. So they had a following, and they hadn't been back since. They hadn't been to Canada since probably 98 or 99. So I was first show back in Canada in, you know, over 15 years. And there was over 30,000 people like there to see Jugheads in middle of the day, you know, and it was friggin' awesome. That was super cool, man. I think that might've been the same year Sort of Jelly Beans played too, but I think Ricky was with them. Yeah, that was another moment. And then non-festival wise, you know, just to keep it fair, because everybody has like awesome moments at festivals, you know, and then you're playing a shitty bar the next night. But in I Hate Kate, that first tour that I did with them, we played the Midland Theater in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's a big like 3-level theater. I think it holds like 4,000, and it was a sold out show. And we had one of these songs called I'm in Love with a Sociopath. And in the middle, after the bridge, there was like a little drum solo. It's probably like a 20-second type little just groovy drum solo type thing. And I have this on video. It's actually up on my YouTube channel that I just started. There's an old video of it. And I do a little drum solo and then stop. And then just hearing the lights go on and you just see 4,000 screaming, you know, 13, 14-year-old girls mostly. But still, that noise for my shitty little drum solo, and I just kind of soaked it in for a minute, and then boom, come back into the next downbeat, and we finished the song. That was one of them. That was awesome.
Well, AJ, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for also enduring some of our internet glitches, and but your story is awesome. It's very inspiring to a lot of people. How can people reach you on Instagram or other social media platforms?
Well, pretty much just Facebook and Instagram. Like my name is just AJ Condosta on Facebook, but mostly Instagram is better, and that's Anthony_Joseph_Condosta. And there's links to like my YouTube channel and stuff that I just started. Apparently I had a YouTube channel for the last like 15 years and I forgot about it. I hadn't posted anything on there in over like 10 years because I'm like trying to create one. This email already exists. I'm like, bullshit. Who? But so now I've been doing all these drum videos. I wanted to kind of put them on one place. So yeah, so that's just like Facebook's just AJ Condosta on YouTube and all that. So, but yeah, mostly Instagram stuff. And then my bands are on there, you know, just Hit the Switch official, Jugheads Revenge official, Guttermouth official. I'm not with Voodoo Glow Skulls anymore. I left them back in probably November, but I still have a lot of love and respect for those guys. And they're, you know, Voodoo Glow Skulls and .com, just at Voodoo Glow Skulls on Instagram, all that. They're easy to find too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I guess our last question is, so we like to have our interviewees nominate someone that they'd like to see interviewed, or someone that they would recommend to be interviewed by National Drum League. Is there anybody you can recommend or you'd like to nominate?
Oh man, so many. How do I shout out my friends? But does it have to be from? I guess it's got to be from somewhat known bands. You know, have you done Mike Cambra from Adolescents and Death by Stereo and stuff? I love Mike. He's one of my homies. Or Chris Daly. Have you guys done Daly? I know he likes doing these things too.
Daly, yeah.
You did Daly?
Up a Daly. We dallied.
He's always before me. Damn it! He was in Voodoo Glow Skulls before me. I'm just kidding. I love you, Daly.
Well, we haven't released his video yet, so we could do a little swap over, a little
All right.
Viola, you know what I'm saying?
Whose palms do I gotta grease?
We could have you say, "Hey, I nominate Daly to come on," and then we show his afterwards. We're like, "Yeah, you know what? AJ made this happen."
Yeah, you're welcome, bro.
Okay, but who you recommending though? Who you asking for? And it could be anybody.
Oh.
We've had a few people.
Did you say you did Mike Cambra already or no? Yeah, do Mikey, man. Mikey's an awesome drummer, awesome dude. His bands that he's in, Rip, Adolescents, obviously. So he's in a lot of the same boat of joining already long-time established bands, as well as Death by Stereo. They've been around for a long time and everything too when he joined, but he's also done a couple of records with them already. So he's been in the fold as well. And then same with like Common War, his other band and stuff. That's kind of like my Hit the Switch, where Hit the Switch was already around before I joined, obviously. But I've been in that band for over 10 years, and that's where a lot of my creativity, that's my outlet for a lot of that stuff. I have a lot more to do with writing my own drum parts and writing the songs and helping with structures and all that. And that's his band Common War too, is just ripping, sick band that he gets to. So,
Awesome.
And he's a good conversation. He's a handsome fella. He's a well-spoken jewel, and he's a great drummer, and he's a great dude. I nominate Mike Cambra.
All right, well, I just want to say on behalf of National Drum League and Jesse and Josh and I, thank you so much for spending the time with us this evening to do this.
Thanks for having me.
So we can get somebody to come on and, pass on information and tell stories about how they started, where they're at now, where they want to go in the future. It's just an awesome thing, especially with young drummers out there today. I mean, it's as you said, everybody plays guitar. So when you can meet a dude that plays drums, I mean, it's a rarity to find a really good drummer. So thank you so much, AJ, for
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me, dude. This is a lot of fun.